So welcome back guys to another video, and it's been about a week since the Nintendo Direct and they announced SNES games coming out for the Switch Online service. And ironically, when they made that announcement, I downloaded it immediately because I was actually getting hit with a Hurricane Dorian, so I wanted to go ahead and have some games on my Nintendo Switch before I lost power. And during that time, it was almost comforting playing these 20 different titles that were the epitome of my childhood. I really have enjoyed SNES games on the Switch. So with that being said, there are of course some other games I would love to see on this platform, so here is a little wish list of games I would love to see. The first game I want to mention is one of my absolute favorites on the Super Nintendo, and that is Actraiser. It has an amazing soundtrack from Yuzo Koshiro, and at first glance it may seem like your standard hack and slash sort of game that we've seen with titles like Castlevania, but the game also has a god simulator, which is pretty awesome. The overhead view simulation mode involves protecting and guiding the Master's new civilization towards peace, beginning with 2 humans. This portion of the game requires the player to take actions that encourage the growth of the population, including road planning and using elements like lightning, rain, sunlight, wind, earthquakes as miracles. The angel can interact with the monsters in the area by shooting them with arrows, as well as aid the master by interacting where to build and use miracles. I thought this was a very big surprise when I first played the game, because I was thinking that this was just going to be a hack and slash, but I had no idea that this game had so much depth, and I would love to see it on the SNES Switch Online service. Now, in that 20 list of games that Nintendo sent us, there was only one brawler, which kind of made me sad. I mean, Street Brawler is okay, don't get me wrong, but I would love to see Super Double Dragon, one of my favorites on the console. It's my favorite Double Dragon game. It's a little slower compared to some of the other Double Dragons, but I feel like the animation is just so spot on. The music is great. You know, this was a time when the Super Nintendo was coming out and everything had to be super, so this was Super Double Dragon. And, you know, I loved the teamwork moves that the 2 players would have, and with that being said, having 2-player co-op online would just make this a fantastic choice. And you know, with River City Girls doing so well on the Nintendo Switch, why not bring some old school Double Dragon? Now, when they announced the SNES games on the online service, I think this was one title that a lot of folks wanted in that collection, that is Earthbound. See, Earthbound's one of those games that while initially came out with not a big response from audiences and gamers, as time progressed, it became a cult classic, and I feel like even someone like myself who has played Earthbound that's not the biggest fan of the title, I feel like every gamer should at least play it once to see what the big fuss is. Now, I appreciate Earthbound for what it is. It was something very different from the JRPG scenes like Chrono Trigger to Final Fantasy VI. The battle system, in my opinion, was kind of dated. The inventory system was pretty primitive, but the overall story is really what drives this game. It's very different. It's more of a neighboring adventure. You're playing as Snes and you're trying to investigate this meteor that crashed into your town, and it unfolds into this crazy journey for just a kid to go through. Instead of swords, you're using baseball bats, and I think that's really cool. I think this would be a great game on the Switch Online, especially for those folks who still have not had a chance to play this game, that do not want to pay the huge price tag for an SNES cart. Rocky Rodent is a hidden gem from Irem. In Rocky Rodent, you're saving a restaurant owner's daughter from the mob boss. Your reward is a bunch of food. And it's a pretty fun platformer that has a Sonic-like feel, but Rocky can get various different hairstyle cuts that give him different abilities. It's a shame that this title isn't mentioned more, which is more of a reason I would love to see this on the Switch Online service with the SNES games. Now, I have 2 more JRPGs I would love to see on this little platform, and one of them, of course, I feel like it would not be an SNES collection without it, and that is Chrono Trigger. I feel like this game really doesn't need that much of an introduction. It's got a fantastic story. It has like time travel. It's got very likable characters. It's got a really good battle system. I feel like eventually we need to have this. We need to have this on the go on the Nintendo Switch. And another JRPG, you know, I have to mention, because, you know, Squaresoft was huge. You add Nintendo, and you had Super Mario RPG. This is a fantastic RPG, and I remember renting this from Blockbuster and being blown away by the graphics alone, but add some of the humor and some of the very clever storytelling with Nintendo and the Mario franchise, and a very addictive, fun battle system. I mean, that was one of the things I loved about this game. I thought the battle system was really unique and really showcased the Super Mario Brothers series. Congo's Caper is one of my go-to rentals as a kid, and it was a Data East staple. It was related to the Joe and Max series, and you wouldn't know that from just playing it because there's not a whole lot of tie-ins to the Joe and Max series and Congo's Caper per se, but you know, the story follows a very stereotypical plot that you're trying to save your girlfriend from a demon. But what makes this game a little different from the Joe and Max series is Congo Caper, he is a half man, half monkey. So almost like a Mario sense that if you get hit, you get turned into a monkey and you run around, but of course if you get that red orb, you turn back into a caveman boy. And he's got kind of like gameplay styles in the sense of Sonic where he can jump into a ball and he can whack people with a club. This game's a lot of fun. It's actually got a lot of content to it. It's got 35 different levels, and this is one title that I would love more folks to experience, maybe for the first time, maybe for that nostalgic ride on the SNES online service. Now, out of the 20 games in the announcement, they did not announce one fighter, and I was kind of sad about that because I love my fighting games, and there's plenty of fighting games on the eShop, I admit, but, you know, I was trying to think, you know, what could they release, and I was thinking of Killer Instinct, but that's owned by Microsoft now with Rare, so that would be maybe a little hard, but then I was like, hey, why not a Konami fighter that I feel like is really underrated, and that is TMNT Tournament Fighters. Now, this is a Street Fighter clone through and through, but it had the Ninja Turtles. I thought the sprite work was really good. I loved the balance with the fighting. I love playing as the Shredder and just beating everybody up, and it had a fantastic soundtrack. This was Konami when they were on their A game, and I also liked the gauge meter. I liked the fact that you could fill up a gauge meter and do a super attack. That was something I had never seen at that time. This was before, you know, Marvel vs. Capcom and everything. So that would be a really fun game with online play, definitely. Now, a top-down shooter that never came out to the West that I feel like would be really, no pun intended, a blast to play would be the Fireman. Now, I did a review of the Fireman a couple years ago, and, you know, I bought the reproduction card. That was the game I heard about for the longest time when people talked about underrated, hidden gems Super Nintendo games, and this was kind of different because, you know, it was a top-down shooter, but you weren't shooting monsters or soldiers, commandos, but you were putting out fires. You were a fireman, and you were trying to save this building from going ablaze, and you were trying to save victims, and the special weapons you'd have would be like hydro bombs to put out huge fires. So anyway, guys, those are some SNES games that I would love to see on the Switch Online service. What are some games that you would like? Be sure to leave a comment below. I know I left a lot of games out because, frankly, the Super Nintendo has an awesome catalog. So I'd love to hear some of your suggestions. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the bell beside the subscription button so you're notified whenever there's a new video coming out on this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.